Have you ever wondered why most new entrepreneurs and new businesses fail in their first year? In fact, over 90% never make it. Well, it's almost like a few elite others break through the barrier, find massive success, serve a bunch of people, and start generating millions of dollars. You being here today watching this video lets me know that you don't want to be one of those ones who fall through the cracks and who don't make it. So in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you the 3 foundational pillars that every new entrepreneur, new business owner needs to pull all 3 of these levers if you want to be one who finds massive success as you begin your business. So that way you don't fall off to the wayside and you actually make it, okay? Before we jump in, make sure to like and subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching. It's completely free for you. And if you want to see more content like this, all you got to do is just subscribe, hit the bell. It also helps the algorithm put the stuff out. Okay, let's jump right on in, okay? What is pillar number 1? Pillar number 1 is this. I believe that one of the most needed, yet one of the most lacking virtues when it comes to entrepreneurship is the virtue of courage. Just a couple of days ago, I was talking with a friend of mine who was saying, man, Rick, it is so crazy that you are getting the numbers that you're getting. Like a lot of the main online marketers and business people, they're boasting like these numbers that people are like amazed by. And somehow your numbers are like 10 times more than theirs, even though you don't boast about your numbers nearly as much as them. Why do you think that is? Like, how in the world are you doing this? And I said, well, I believe that I've got the favor of God in my life, number 1. But number 2, I've got courage, man. I absolutely have courage. And I will tell you this, one of the main things that you need to understand as a new or aspiring entrepreneur, as a new business owner, it will take courage. And where does courage come from? I'm glad you asked that. Numbers chapter 11, in the Bible, there's a story when God is calling the Israelites to go take the promised land. And it's very, very interesting because Moses sends 12 spies into the land to go basically just check the land, like go spy out the land and then come back, bring us a report. How was the promised land and what should we prepare for? So very, very interesting. Pay attention. So all 12 of these spies go into the promised land, and something very interesting to take note of here. All 12 of these spies had the same experience, but they came out with 2 different perspectives. In fact, I need at least 10 people in the comments to drop this word, perspective. Perspective. How many of y'all know that you have to change the way you see it so that you can change the way you see it? What does that mean? It means that your perspective, when it comes to courage, your perspective is tremendously important as you begin your new business, as you start your new entrepreneurial journey. You have to begin to think differently, okay? So these 12 spies go into the promised land. They all have the same experience, but they come out with different perspectives. They come back and they're giving the report. 10 of them have this perspective, okay? Man, we went to the promised land. Yeah, there was like milk and honey and it was really cool, but there were giants in the land and there were tons of giants. There were fortified cities. And honestly, like we were so scared. And literally these 10 said it like this. We were like grasshoppers in our own eyes. And so the enemy saw us as grasshoppers. Remember what Proverbs says, as a man or a woman thinks in their heart, so they are. These 10 who came out of the promised land, because they set their perspective on the problems instead of the promise, they saw themselves as insignificant. And in our case here, in this context today, they saw themselves as grasshoppers, right? And because they saw themselves as grasshoppers, guess who else saw them as grasshoppers? The enemy did. So because they saw themselves as grasshoppers, they were never able to go into the promised land and actually occupy what God had called them to occupy. Why? Because they set their perspective on the problem, how hard it was going to be, instead of setting their perspective on the promise. Now, the flip side is incredibly interesting because while these 10 spies are giving a terrible report of how many problems there are, Caleb and Joshua, they butt in. Now, by the way, Caleb was 80 years old. So I don't care how old you think you are I'm too old to start my business or I'm done. No way. Caleb was 80 years old saying, give me my next mountain. So Caleb pipes in and he goes, wait, guys. Listen, yes, there's giants in the land. Yes, there's fortified cities. But guys, there's milk and honey in the land. The fruit was so amazing. It took 2 of us to carry it out together on our shoulders. And then Caleb began to say it like this. And God promised us the land. What was the difference? Remember, both of this group had the same experience, but both of them had different perspectives, right? 10 of them came out of the promised land scared because they were focused on the problem. But Caleb and Joshua, they rose up with courage because they focused not on the problem, but on the promise. And I want to encourage you as a new entrepreneur, as somebody who wants to start your business, you need to understand that it is going to take courage. Yes, there are times that it's going to be hard. Yes, not everything is going to go right. In fact, most things, especially in the beginning, are going to go wrong. But if you keep your perspective on the promise, on the potential, and stop focusing on the problems. This is too hard. I don't know if I can do this. Man, I don't know if I'm going to have enough money. No one believes in me. Instead of focusing on that stuff, you need to turn your focus, turn your perspective on the possibilities. You need to focus on things like, man, I can be the first millionaire in my family. I don't care how hard this gets. It's going to work or it's going to work. Which one? Like, you need to begin to lift your vision higher. And the crazy part about Caleb and Joshua's side of the story is this. Remember the first guys, they saw themselves as grasshoppers. So figuratively, they became grasshoppers and they never got to enter into the promised land. Well, Caleb and Joshua, they end their rebuttal to them and they go, guys, stop focusing on the problems. Let's focus on the problem, on the promise. God said he would give us a land. And then watch this. Caleb and Joshua said, yes, there are giants there, but we will slay so many giants, it will be like eating our daily bread. What does that mean? Caleb and Joshua were saying, guys, we will just make slaying giants as a part of our daily routine. It don't matter. Yes, there's giants. Let's just go in there and slay a whole bunch. Like, if we could slay 1 giant, we can slay 5. If we could slay 5 giants, we could slay 10. If we could slay 10, we could slay 100. Like, let's just do it. That's just going to be part of the process. Right? So interestingly enough, the first guy saw themselves as grasshoppers and they became grasshoppers, but Caleb and Joshua saw themselves as giant slayers. So they became giant slayers. I need to know down in the comments right now, do you see yourself as a grasshopper or do you see yourself as a giant slayer? Hopefully it's a giant slayer, right? So the very first lever that you've got to pull as a new entrepreneur, as a new business owner, is you've got to get some courage. And how are you going to get your courage? You have got to change your perspective from looking at the problems and turn it towards looking at the potential and at the promise, okay? That's the first lever you've got to pull. What's the second lever that you have to pull? The second lever that new entrepreneurs and new business owners need to pull in order to find success and to ensure success in your business is you have got to make sure that your minds, with an S, your minds are set correctly. What does that mean? Like, Rick, you just said minds, like we have 2 minds. Like, yes, every single one of us we don't just have 1 mind, we have 2 minds. I need you to understand this, okay? So a lot of people talk about mindset, but what they forget to mention is that we have 2 minds. We have a conscious mind and we have a subconscious mind. Another way to think of it is like this. Your conscious mind is the realized thoughts. They're the intentional thoughts, right? Your subconscious mind is your autopilot mind. Now, here's the very interesting part about this, okay? Your conscious mind, who has realized intentional thoughts, as long as you're having these realized intentional thoughts over and over and over and over, then your conscious mind programs your subconscious mind. Okay, why is this important? Because honestly, if you're having thoughts about like, man, this is too hard, or man, the price of gas is so high, the price of eggs is so expensive, and man, we're never going to be able to get by. Guess what's happening? You are programming your subconscious mind, because here's the interesting part. When your conscious mind has thoughts over and over and over, it programs your subconscious mind so that when it's time to have a conscious thought again in your conscious part of your mind, guess what happens? Your subconscious mind goes, hey, remember, this is our program. We're programmed to think like this. So just reminding you, because you told me this is what you want. So this is our perspective on life, remember? And it literally kicks you into a negative cycle in your mindsets. Okay? You have to set both minds. How do you do this? Well, the first part is you have to set your conscious mind to begin to think thoughts of success. Remember again, Proverbs says, as a man or a woman thinks in their heart, so they are. If you think that you can't do it, unfortunately, you're right. If you think that you can do it, you are also right, right? Like whatever you think about, can I do it? Can I not do it? All of those are correct thoughts. If you think it's hard, then it's going to be hard. If you think I can figure this out, then you can figure it out. And the more that you have these conscious thoughts of success, it's going to program your subconscious mind. And this is the part of our mind that literally gives us our world view. Why is business so hard for new entrepreneurs and new business owners, especially in the beginning? Because they're still trying to break through in their subconscious mind. They're like, man, I'm dreaming of success. I'm trying to do this, but somehow I can't figure it out. Exactly. Because you have not set your minds, you have not set both minds to be reprogrammed. Think about this. Why is it so hard to set our mind? Because our whole entire lives, we have been programmed to think a certain way, to believe that making money is hard, to believe that you have to trade your time and your effort for dollars, instead of believing that I can tap into my creativity. Making money is easy. I can do this. I can figure this out. And no matter how big the problem is, my God-given potential, I am bigger than any problem that comes my way. The more you start thinking like this in your conscious mind, the more you set your subconscious mind. And why is this important? Because the more you set your conscious mind to those thoughts of success, instead of going, man, that's too much, I can't afford that, you're thinking thoughts like, I would love to acquire that one day. That is a desire of mine. How can I afford this, right? Like you change your mindset. The more you do this, the more your subconscious mind gets reprogrammed. I need at least 10 people in the comments right now. Drop these words, reprogram. You got to get reprogrammed, baby. You got to reprogram your mindsets. You have to reprogram both of them, right? And yes, think about this. You've been programmed a certain way your whole entire life to think a certain way. So your subconscious mind, your autopilot mind, it's running on an old program. You've got to change the program, change your mindsets so that you can start not just consciously thinking about success, but you can also subconsciously start believing and subconsciously put on a new pair of lenses for life to begin to understand like, I desire a $5 million home. How can I figure out how to get one? I desire to give $100,000 to my favorite charity or church this year or ministry. Instead of trying to make $100,000 my annual income, how can I make $100,000 my annual giving? See, you start thinking differently, and your subconscious mind, just like it does with the bad programming, your subconscious mind goes, hey, remember you programmed me to think like all things are possible. Remember you programmed me to think that making money is easy. Remember this problem that's come your way, you program me to let you know that, remind us that we're bigger than this problem. The potential God put in us is bigger than this. And you start going, oh yeah, right? So we've got to reprogram our mindsets, both of them, if we want to see massive success in our entrepreneurial journey, especially in the beginning. Now, what is the third lever that we have to pull? Remember, the first lever is you've got to get your courage up. You got to change your perspective, okay? Second lever is you have got to set your mindsets correctly, okay? Get unprogrammed from the bad programming. Set a new program of success in your mindsets for both sets of your mind. And then the third pillar, the third lever that you have to pull is simply this. The easiest way to create wealth is to find a big group of people who have a very big problem and to obsess over that problem, solving that problem for them more than they obsess over that problem. What does that mean? Like, think about it. There are whole entire groups of people out there who they all have the same or similar problems that all of them need and desire to be solved. And guess what? The people who make money are the ones who obsess over, okay, what is the problem? Okay, now how can I solve this problem for a bunch of people and charge everybody and make their lives better because their problem is solved, and now my life is better because they said thank you for solving my problem in the form of dollar signs. Like, guys, when it comes to starting your new business, you have got to understand that you can't just come up with some random idea, like, you know, some random product, some random service, like, oh, I'm going to be a juggler who sells lattes that cook on my head. It's a great idea. Like, you know, like, and it sounds silly, but here's the punchline. Most new entrepreneurs, they come up with a new product or service that they desire to sell, when in fact that is the fastest way to lose in business, because no one cares what you want to sell. Everyone cares about their problems and who has my solution, right? So if you can find a big group of people who have a big problem and obsess over solving that problem more than they obsess over the problem itself, and you begin to figure out ways how to solve that problem for them in the form of a product or a service, guess what? You are going to begin to generate massive amounts of wealth. Think about it. We don't want to have to walk everywhere, right? Like, so there are companies out there who see a gigantic problem. Well, to go from their house to the grocery store, the coffee shop, it's 5 miles. No one wants to walk 5 miles just to get a coffee. So we're going to sell them some cars, right? Like, no one just came up with this idea of like, I'm going to just randomly sell a car. No, like Henry Ford in the early 1900s saw this crazy, crazy need in the market that, golly, man, everyone's walking miles and miles everywhere. And, you know, the people who are getting there quicker and being more time efficient, they're riding horses. So what if we came up with something to solve that problem? And then the same thing went with like trains, and the same thing went with planes, and the same thing went with all kinds of machinery, and on and on and on. The same thing went with grocery stores, right? The same thing went with dentists. The same thing went with doctors and lawyers, etc., etc. So instead of trying to come up with a new or creative idea, right? Like, a lot of my students, they come to me, when they first come to me, they're like, well, you know, I'm going to, whatever, I am going to coach people on how to be a homeschool mom. But man, who would want to buy my program on being a homeschool mom? A bunch of people would, right? Like, a lot of times when we begin to think that like the market is saturated, quote unquote, just because the market is saturated, don't focus. Remember, going back to courage and perspective, don't focus on like, well, the market's saturated, let's try to come up with something new and creative. No, no, no. If the market is saturated, that means that there is a market, right? That means that there are a lot of people with that problem in the market who need a solution to their problem, and one person or one business or one new entrepreneur can't do all of it on their own. So that's why you need to begin to think of like, okay, how can I solve big problems for a big market and obsess over solving that problem more than they obsess over the problem itself? My friend, if you can do this, if you can pull these 3 levers, I am telling you right now, you will be one of those ones who break through the barrier of new entrepreneurship and new businesses that never make it. You'll be one who does make it because, number 1, you've got your courage. Number 2, you have your mindsets correct. And number 3, you obsess over solving problems for a big mass market more than they obsess over the problem itself. I hope this was helpful for you guys. If you got some value, drop some fire emojis in the comments. One more time, guys, if you like the video, if you want to continue to see more content like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, get the notifications on, and smash the like button, guys. It does push the algorithm to get this content in front of more eyeballs. Hope you're having a good day. Hope that was helpful. We'll see you in the next video.